Hello. Now we just gotta make sure this is working steadily. Too low? Working. Can people hear me in the back? Do we need more volume still? A little bit more? Okay. With every increase in volume, I'm going to move further from. So, okay, how's this? Can everybody hear me? Is it clear? Okay, we're good. Is everybody ready? Okay. Hi, I'm Fred Davis, and I'm a mentor at Upload VR. I started with VR over a friend of mine, Jaron Lanier, coined the term virtual reality, and I've been completely, totally fascinated with it ever since. I love augmented reality so much that I wore Google Glass every day, all day long for 9 months, while everybody thought it was still cool. But it was, just to be able to have an AR product that was far ahead of its time, but was actually a very, very valuable tool in my life. And so, although there were a lot of problems with glass, it was also, I could see the promise that augmented reality held, just kind of extrapolating from that very, very simple, crude experience to what we're going to be able to have as things go down the road. So, tonight we're going to be talking about VR and AR and retail. We've got some great panelists to give you some of their experiences, but I just want to start off by saying that the impact of VR and AR in retail is going to be so huge, it's going to change the way that people buy and sell things. It's going to change, and it's going to change the entire customer experience and customer journey in ways that can be positive, but if we're not careful, could also wind up with massive customer confusion or other problems. So the vision of AR that I was going to show the AR world, there's a video that shows how crazy it can be if everything has AR and there's signs and marketing and everything jumping out at you. It'll be so confusing, you won't buy anything, because confusion is the enemy of buying. So the AR stuff is going to need standards, because right now on the web, we can look at any page no matter whatever web browser we have. But if I can only see specials that are available to Apple viewers, and these people can only see specials that are available that are viewable by Oculus people, and these guys can only see ones that are viewable by HoloLens people, and these people, good grief, it's going to fragment the AR content of a space, whether that be a store or any room, so that you'll only be able to see a limited number or nothing at all when there's all kinds of stuff around there that other people are looking at. So if you're in retail, you can't assume, unless you're at the Apple store, that everybody's going to have an iPhone or that everybody's going to have the same AR technology as it comes along. So I think there's a lot of interesting players in augmented reality. Someday these kind of AR glasses will be coming on down the pike. Magic Leap is we're still waiting for their stuff, and Apple's got 1,000 engineers trying to copy Magic Leap because they've bought into that whole vision. And that product is going to be out for at least a minimum of 2 years. Look how long it took Magic Leap. So it would take Apple another 3 years. The type of AR that Apple has, where you can hold up a little window of the world, is interesting. A lot of people, when we think of AR, we think about the glasses that we wear, where we can see things throughout our whole field of view, like with the HoloLens and Meta and other things. And then one last thing I want to say about VR is V-commerce. So someday, I think that, just imagine that you're somebody who is selling something online. $3 trillion worth of this stuff got sold last year. That's a lot of business of people who are selling stuff online. So if I'm selling stuff online, if I'm an online merchant, would I rather have somebody flipping through my catalog hundreds or maybe thousands of miles away? Or would I rather invite them into their own personal, customized virtual store that is custom tailored to the things they're interested in, that has an AI shopping assistant who's actually there to help you, who knows about you, who's not a shill salesperson from the store trying to sell you all kinds of stuff you don't need, but your little virtual shopping assistant. I can tell you a couple of things. That if you get somebody into a virtual store and you do it right from a branding perspective, VR is an experiential medium. People will experience that visit, and you may be able to create especially after several visits, a branding experience that that person will remember for the rest of their life in a way that you could do more easily than television or billboards or outdoor or any other type of media. The other thing that I think is going to change hugely, and this is why it'll go so fast, is engagement and conversions. As we all know on the web, clicks are ridiculous. It's a bottomless pit of nothingness. What you really want to do is measure engagement and the ROI in your campaigns. Now, engagement is tough. As anybody on the web knows, it's really, really tough to get engagement. But once you're in VR, you are completely engaged. You are completely immersed and surrounded to the exclusion of everything else in whatever purchase experience or marketing experience or whatever you're going into. So the ability to have an incredible amount of engagement, I think, will also lead to an incredible amount of conversions, because once you've got that engagement and you have people picking up virtual products, looking at them, whatever, popping them on their avatar or whatnot, it's going to be so engaging. This will replace people going to, it's another thing that's going to kill off brick and mortar. I'm sure that Amazon is working on v-commerce as we speak, because they get it and they're always looking 2 or 3 steps ahead. But I think, this isn't next year, it's a few years down the path, but I think that v-commerce will ultimately supplant e-commerce in consumer retail. And maybe in a lot of B2B situations as well, where people need to inspect schematics and peel open machinery or objects that they're going to buy. So it's a huge thing. And then I just, very quickly, I'm on a personal crusade to help consumers be less confused so that they will be more easily turned into customers. So the biggest problem that we have right now is all of the garbage terminology that's going on around VR, MR, AR, XR, JR, NR, LMNOP, So it's getting out of hand. For 20 years, you guys can look it up later, it's called the Reality Virtuality Continuum. It's a scientific paper. It is the most referenced paper in all of virtual reality. And it's simple. You start off in the real world. As you approach virtuality, you hit augmented reality, where you're taking virtual things and you put them in the real world. That's simple. As you go towards virtual reality, the next step, we get into something that there's not a lot of examples of. It's called augmented virtuality. And that's where you take real things and you put them in the virtual world. And then at the end of that, you have virtual reality or complete virtuality. So mixed reality is everything in between reality and virtual reality, but not including either of those. So augmented reality and augmented virtuality, that equals mixed reality. To call this stuff by, you can go VR, AR, and those are going to be good because consumers understand what they are. And I'll tell you something, everybody in the world knows what VR is. It would cost hundreds, if not of millions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars to get that kind of brand and name recognition globally through so much of the population. So whatever acronyms you start off with, you better start off with VR, or consumers aren't going to have anything to hang their hat on about what this field of technology is at all. And so it should start with VR. And if you want to use something, go VR MR, which includes AR. But if you want to be the easiest to understand to consumers, you'll stick with VR/AR, because millions of dollars to get people to understand what augmented reality means when they launch the new iPhone. So when customers all over already know what virtual reality is, if you start with VR/anything, at least they know the domain of technology that we're talking about. I like to call them reality technologies, if you want to have a group name for everything. That in these, so if consumers understand it, you're going to have an easier time selling to it. So the whole move to do like XR is ridiculous because nobody knows what that is. People in the industry don't know what that is, and it's not a valid scientific term that's ever been used to describe anything virtual. So I just really want to leave you with, stick with VR/AR for now, because I think those are the terms that consumers are going to understand. They know VR now, and after Apple, they're going to know AR extremely well because of Apple's global marketing capabilities. Okay, onto our panel here. Oh, I should sit in front of the mic. Okay, so I wanted to introduce the people on the panel that are here with us today. Um, we've got down at the end here, Ryan Wang. He's with Outpost Capital. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for being here. Steve McMurray with Yogi Media Labs. We have Siciliano Trevino, a 360 videographer of some note, who does a lot. Is really active in the East Bay, and I've looked at some of the events and some of the video classes stuff that you've been doing over there. It's very impressive work. Down at the end, we've got Sheraton Tatsuna, who is with One Reality, and I've known for a variety of different things. And then we have David Montero with Blipar, or Blipper? Blipar. How is that? Blipar, okay. Blipar, which is also a very, very interesting, kind of far ahead in the thinking of this kind of VR retail and marketing field. So, so I got just a kind of simple question to start with. What are some of the existing examples of AR in retail applications that you think are really promising? So, anybody have any comments on that? Sure.
Hi everyone, I'm Siciliana. First I just want to thank you all for coming out. Can we just get a quick round of applause for SF Design Week and coming out to our host tonight, Cloud Force. Thanks for having us. It's really exciting. Also, I just want to ask, how many people here are actively working as account holder, like with accounts, asking about AR and VR? Anyone? Okay. And how many people here are designers in one field and curious about getting into branding for VR and transitioning from your current phase into VR? Great. Okay. So there's a lot of room for you. It's good that you're here. And there's a lot of community, and I think there's a lot to be excited about, particularly in AR with Apple and IKEA's partnership, which was just announced today with their augmented furniture app. So I'm really excited about what Apple's going to do to empower consumers to use augmented reality with tools that they already know how to use.
Okay, is this one on? Can you hear me back there at all? I'm not getting this one. Okay, is this one working?
It is.
Okay, I should grab the wired one, and we should be passing the wireless one around to our guests, so they won't have to trip over it or whatever. So yeah, and L'Oreal just, there was an article about L'Oreal's VR use in retail display. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, hi guys, my name is Steve McMurray. You guys hear me now?
Oh, here.
Hello? Oh, maybe I have to touch my mouth here.
Use the wire
There we go.
How's that?
How's that? Thanks for hanging in there with me. Y Media Labs. We have a lot of big retailers, so I'm a senior product advisor at L'Oreal, as you just mentioned, on their salon-centric chain, Home Depot, Staples, quite a few in the retail space. We are exploring pretty actively sort of forward-thinking technologies. I think one of the apps that I like the most in sort of the AR space in retail is the Makeup Genius app. Has anyone ever seen or played with the Makeup Genius app in AR? So it's pretty cool. You can basically just hold the phone up to your face, and it looks at your face, and it will automatically map your face. It knows where your eyes are, it knows where your lips are, different shades of makeup. It'll lips without you having to like draw a line on your face or tell you where your eyes are, stay still, and it'll track your movement as you move around. It's kind of like a Snapchat. Coach, right? They've been around. They've been doing it for a few years. The CTO, they worked with the CTO. They're really sharp guys at McPhee. They've won multiple but it's really awesome because it's so easy to use, right? Like some like arbitrary point in space in front of you. It knows how big your lips are, so it draws the makeup right on your lips, right? It knows how big your eyes are, so it draws the eyeshadow right on top of your eyes. Is that these furniture type, a piece of furniture in your room that you don't have to resize it, you don't have to spin it, right? So sort of the combination of like augmented reality experiences is something that's going to be really powerful in the future.
I'd like to start with AR retail, right? from the retail perspective, there are really two type of retail products we are talking about here. The individual type of clothes, your shoes, or some kind of product. And the other is like cars, yards, and the other stuff, right? So my statement is retail adoption in the VR AR sector, a lot of opportunities on the first category. I think, on the car sales and VR for, demonstrating a office space and this kind of use cases have already been widely adopted. At this, a lot of companies, first companies like Alibaba, experimenting how, and so far all their experiments have been failed. And from what I know, they've cut down their VR AR initiative from the e-commerce perspective down this kind of research center. I think, AR, well, on the long term, right, it's great for retail, but e-commerce in general, but it makes a lot of sense for, the large commodities, the customers to experience, to have a direct understanding. Is a very easy way to work around this part to the
Okay. Now that, sorry, I was just going to say what we call considered purchase, and then there's the impulse buy. And because AR and VR carry so much information, they're way better suited to purchases, and that's where the big money will actually get some ROI. Whereas on an impulse buy, we're a long way away from that. I totally agree. And
Planning and design in Sweden are bringing to the Bay Area this fall. Three ways, and we design public housing for them from scratch. So we don't use 360 because you have to make pre-built building. So and we kind of deal with the sell. So they provide the CAD system, and then you can just drop and drag the apartment and the furniture, the furnishings. We drop everything in there, and so it's the opposite of Lowe's. Lowe's is, if you've seen, it's a showroom. We have, and we're using them as the showroom. So we're bringing the retail into the apartments. Architects, engineers, and designers in Sweden and worldwide now is that you not only build the building, you sell the furniture and everything is added. We could sell IKEA, where we want, because this is a CAD file when you drop them in. We use the Unity CAD files that has to be done. So basically, you turn any building, office, a shopping mall. See, these are real buildings that are going up. So larger purchases, so we sell the house. And now for the daily purchases, that's a little too much action there yet. But I think basically it's just order and ship. One multiplayer gaming functionality, and I transferred over went to the dark cars and all. So we want to do live mixed reality. So we have with people going in there in real, and then we can drop them into Bali or wherever you want, in VR, being it worldwide. So that's kind of the next step. Live event-driven retail. That's kind of where we're headed. But it's
yeah, I'm an interaction designer by trade, in things that are going to modify people's behaviors, products that are out there that I find really interesting. Well, you mentioned before Alibaba. Alibaba had a concept, and it was a virtual space. What they are doing is adding virtuality to the whole journey of a person that cannot be physically in a store. So they build the whole experience for somebody that is in China, and then they're putting them into a bus, attendant that is going to help you choose. And then there's the flip side. So this is the side in which somebody wants to go to a location and cannot possibly go. And then there's the other case of this company called Metaverse is starting. And it's for people that otherwise they wouldn't go to a store. They provide a platform for little businesses to create a treasure hunt game, so they could bring somebody into stores that are physical locations that otherwise they wouldn't go. So for example, if I would have a hot dog menu, I create a treasure hunt where you can go to a place and you have to find the sausage, you have to find the bun, you have to find the bacon, and then it's going to take you to the store, and then you have as a prize you have the hot dog. So those are things that I find really interesting because they tackle into existing behaviors, and they enable the medium into something that to enable people to do something that otherwise they couldn't do. And that's where I see that the magic of AR and VR.
And I'd like to add for the AR experience, if you're working with customers or you're a designer looking to bring customers into a physical space through having some kind of AR activity, customer service is going to be key. Like your sales force has to be properly trained on the process of downloading the app, accessing codes, and using their phones, because maybe it's, for instance, in 2011, Macy's issued an app called Yes Virginia, where they could go into the store, write a letter to Santa Claus, and then take a photo of an icon, and the animated character Virginia, who is part of their whole promotional campaign, came to life, and you could take a picture and share it on Facebook. So you could imagine all these kids who see their friends with this Virginia character in the Macy's and saying, you know, Grandma, take me to Macy's, or the grandma saying, we're going to Macy's. And if the customer can't interact with a salesperson to get the technology, that's a fail. So I think as we bridge in between the time where it's just native to us, you have to think about, you know, all these great ideas of AR are only as good as the execution in the store.
And because of the lack of standards and platform fragmentation, I think a lot of the early adopters are going to need to put a set of the same objects for multiple different platforms in the store. Because if you want to get everybody, you can't have going down to the store and then not having it because I can't see anything because I don't have that piece of equipment.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that you might need to put HoloLens compatible objects around, and Apple ARKit compatible objects around, and whatever else comes out, because it's going to be important. If you want a consistent experience for your customers, you're going to have to use multiple technologies so that it can be consistent no matter what device they come into the store with, unless it's a store-placed device like the memory mirrors or some of the other things that are out there.
Which puts a new burden on retailers to become, you know, user designers of their customer experience. So now they're not only selling a chair or a painting, but they have to sell the actual process of where they're in this virtual space. And for me, my background is I spent a lot of time in documentary and then worked at Macy's corporate communications. And in 2009, when retail was disrupted by online, retailers had to pivot. Big ones were being undermined by these small little websites because these websites had a really good story. So, or they had a really good video. So suddenly, retailers had to be storytellers. They had to be content creators. And you're going to see that evolve also in VR. They're going to have to be much more user designers as much as they are vendors.
Yeah, forget those SEO people. Let's get some creative folks in on the game. Okay, so let me see what we pick. So, one on here, which is pretty much everybody wants to know about. What's the biggest obstacle that people find, you think, is for the adoption of AR and VR? And I think what people mean when they say this are the high-end headsets, because all the industry not all of them, because I've found others, but most of the industry ignores the reality of the low end of the market. In 2016, 82 million Google Cardboard compatible headsets were sold. And since the beginning of 2015, there's been over 350 million of VR apps from the Apple App Store, and a vast number of people enjoying a lot of the industry that doesn't pay attention to cardboard. Yet for a lot of entry-level people, the New York Times has fantastic content that they design specifically for cardboard. And I think cardboard doesn't really get its fair share, because that's getting to be pretty universally, when there's almost 100 million devices out there, it's a pretty good sign. But I mean, for what we think of as VR and AR, and what do you think the big barriers are?
For retail. There's actually a way of, we've actually run into this with enterprise, but it's probably similar to retail. Most of the people in enterprise, or in retail, have never tried VR actually, high-end headsets. So half the time, they don't even understand what they can do. So the gee whiz factor. So that's, the biggest problem is getting them to try it. What we do, because we can't have 50 or 100 headsets in presentations, or many headsets in a retail shop, we just put a big screen, either a projection screen, we'll have it, and we can see the VR, and we have navigation, we jump ahead of targets, so they can see the VR world, just like a video game on a PC right now, and everybody gets that. So that's pretty easy. You don't need a lot of headsets, you use VR. If you want to immerse yourself, then you get the headset on. Now that's for the current headsets. Now, I met glass designers, they work at Intel, but I don't know if you know all the headsets now in Italy, and they'll probably come here. About the storage and what about power? And he said, one of the in the smartphone, and he said is in the glasses, then we don't have to do all the processing in the glasses. Then we don't have heavy headsets. So that's one solution this uses, which is what I think Apple's going to do. Because, and then the second is basically this battery. And I met a guy in San Francisco, and he said, oh, he has removable batteries, and then he just puts them in a little thing they charge, so he gets 8 hours with 4 sets of batteries.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar people are with Magic Leap, probably not very, because they're pretty secretive. But Magic Leap's glasses are indeed tethered to something that looks like an iPhone. It's their little compute pack. So they have offloaded the computer into the thing. And I'm sure that when Apple comes out with it, they will use a wireless connection to the iPhone to be the compute power for that device. Now, what we want to talk about was the adoption problems of getting corporations to look at this stuff, getting brands that might be able to change experience. So, any other answers about the adoption problems?
Yeah, before we jump onto that question, I have a quick comment on it, which is I actually have a different thread what you just mentioned, that for the adoption problem of VR and AR, most of the problem is happening on the high end. I think most of the adopt low end rather than the high end. And here's why. So from the audience, how many of you have a cardboard? Raise your hand. Google Cardboard. Yep, so quite a lot. And now, how many of you are using this cardboard every day? Raise your hand. There's one there. It's great. So, so here, that's a problem, right? It's one thing about how many cardboard have been distributed, and most of them have been distributed for free, right? And it's, you can also quote the number of, how many cardboard apps have been downloaded. But the problem is, people tried it, people use it. People tried it, people are surprised by, what kind of capabilities a cardboard device can deliver. But after the surprise, after they bring through the novelty, people's not gonna stick to the platform. That's the biggest problem, right? And I think, one of the fundamental reasons for the adoption, the true adoption, right? Because when we're talking about true adoption, it's not only about how many cardboard do we distribute. It's more of whether the users are really using the cardboard in their life or not, right? All these low-end devices or not. I think that's a bigger problem to be answered. And I think one of the fundamental reasons or the fundamental hurdle that prevent people from using this low-end VR AR headset is because VR AR as a new media is actually powerful, but at the same time very intrusive, right? So basically, when you get into the world of VR AR, the quality of the content better hit a bar, right? Better exceed a certain bar. And I think by no matter cardboard type of products or low-end AR product, which is what we call as mobile AR today, the smartphone-enabled AR, the level of experience that these devices are able to deliver simply cannot reach that bar. So that for the consumers, their incentive to adopt these low-end devices is just not strong enough for them to use that to establish this new habit in their daily life.
So a lot of the usage of cardboard is in the education system by kids who do use it often during the school year, maybe every week, and it's just an invisible market. Nobody cares about the education market except for Google. spend in the U.S. public school systems goes to Chromebooks. So Google has a handle on it, and cardboard is a disposable technology. But what it's paving the way for is to let a bunch of young people experience it and not have a digital divide. You don't have to have an expensive smartphone. Cardboard is crappy, but it runs on a crappy phone. And a lot of kids, that's all they have. So it's a product that crosses the digital divide. No Apple product will ever cross the digital divide. The other thing that I want to mention too is that the future of VR is all going to be mobile VR. Nobody wants to be tethered to a computer while they're running around. So we're starting to see, Google's got a lot of experience developing. Now they're deploying that in Daydream. And Daydream's like the Gear VR, except a lot better, and it works with any Android phone. Android phones will start to support this over the next year. So any phone company can build a Gear VR-like headset. Gear VRs that have been about 5 million sold. Again, some are given away. Usage numbers are still questionable. The content needs to drive it. It needs to go up, absolutely. And we're a couple of years away from mobile VR having that type of quality experience. So I think you try things, you design things with a Vive or something like that, and then you down-sample things to the other devices. And I'm all for cross-platform compatibility so that you're not locking yourself into one system. And both Unity and Unreal have good capabilities to port software over to the different target platforms. I think that's good for you.
I think the question about obstacles is really important as designers and as brands looking to reach out, because it's all about what's the opportunity. And when I try to think about these kinds of questions, the three things that came to me were what I call the 3 C's. It's, customization. First one is cost, like what, and then the second thing is convenience. And then the third thing is customize how is this content going to be delivered? How am I going to receive it? Is it frictionless? Those are the obstacles right now. Like there's no, that's great that there's an AR platform to look at furniture, but I still have to go to the website to order it. I can't, it's not a seamless transaction. And with regard to looking at, cost, it's a really unique situation where you have, from the high end don't have the time to spend in this space playing games and making purchases, and the people that have audiences don't have the money. So that the cost has to come down and the quality has to reach that bar.
About sort of customer experience in store, about like that you have to train retail reps and everything, because I think one of the biggest opportunities for retailers right now is that it is a very high level sort of entry, a barrier of entry for people to get into the consumer VR space. And if you're a retailer, what I tell my retail clients is to really look at it like an opportunity of being able to have an Oculus in the store, to be able to show people things that weren't possible before. Lowe's is a great example. Some stores, you can go into a Lowe's and you can actually get a VR demo of your kitchen that they're about to build you while you're in the store, right? So it really is truly a short-term win for retailers to be able to say, hey, come into our store, try this out, because I can tell you every single retailer right now is freaking out about the low foot traffic in brick and mortar stores. It's a very big problem. They'll throw a lot of money at fixing the problem. So if more, more experiences come out, and again, it goes back to what Ryan was saying about not all purchases are like that, right? I'm not going to go like look for Charmin toilet paper in a Target VR, like Oculus. Right? It's just not going to happen. But the way we like to cut sort of the consumer
Test driving that BMW at a different
exactly.
store.
So I think there's a few different ways to cut consumer purchases. One of the ways that you guys are saying, and one of the ways that I like to look at it is sort of social purchases versus non-social purchases. Like if I buy paper towels or some food that I want to eat, like these highly commoditized products. There's no real social element to it. I buy it and I go home and I eat it, or I use my paper towels or whatever. If I go out to buy shoes, or if I go out to, fashion's a great example, if I go out to buy new jeans or a new shirt, we find in our research that shopping for clothing and a lot of other sort of accessories or cars or watches. These things are very social consumer behaviors for people to do from beginning to end. So when I look at, get inspiration of what to buy, I look on my social media, I see what my friends wear, I look at what the people around me are wearing. When I make that purchase, I like to go with friends. Hey, do you want to go to the mall? You know, I want to go look for some new shoes. Come with me. I want you to see. I want to try them on so you can tell me how I look. And then after I buy them, I post a picture on social media, right? So these are very like social behaviors for certain products. And where VR is going to come in my opinion, and really make a big impact at e-commerce is a great example, is you'll be able to basically do that middle layer of being social while shopping in VR. Like, that's something that you couldn't get from, the web could never do, mobile could never do it, right? You can't shop for things at the same time with some, I have friends that live in Portland, right? If I want to go shopping with them in Portland, I can't do that over a web browser, right? But I can do it in, I mean, if you watch the Oculus demos about how social they are, that sort of social aspect of buying is going to really sort of transform e-commerce and commerce in general for those types of social purchases. You know, me and my wife can go sit in a Beamer without leaving our house, and she can sit in the passenger seat, I can sit in the driver's seat, or we can change it, you know, and we can all get a feel for how the car looks and feels. And so I think, you know, right now, again, short-term wins are in-store displays, but like Susanna mentioned, like there's a big barrier of entry. You got to train these retail employees, and it's a lot. It's expensive to train those people. You got to train managers about how to keep them up and running. We work with GameStop right now, and like it's hard enough for them to keep a single PlayStation 4 demo going all day long. Like imagine trying to keep a bunch of Oculus demos going. So there are definitely some barriers to entry, but there's a lot of opportunity in the space as well.
Has anybody ever seen this from China? Okay. All right, so this is I don't know if you know Chinese gift, but every Chinese New Year's they give children typically a red envelope with money in it, all right? But about a year and a half ago, the Agricultural Bank of China decided to do this. They sell these for $10. They're little books, The Monkey King, which is famous in China, it's like Mickey Mouse. And what they did, they paid $10 for it, and they sold it to their bank customers. And what you do is you go through it, and at the very end of the QR code, and it's for smartphones, for slow networks like 4G, and you click on it, and immediately in your smartphone, the little monkey jumps around, and if you want to put a cardboard on, you can see it immersive, right? So they sold 20 million in 2 months at $10 each. Okay, so I met the developer of AR from Shanghai, and he said, the bank was printing money. And so that's the first killer app, and he started the company, raised $27 million in China for an AR book company, and it's going to come here, maybe Disney or somebody, for children first, education. But if you think about it, any bank, any retail store could issue something, sell it actually, and sell a cartoon, a video, a movie, whatever they want, those products, and make money on the PR media. But that has not arrived in the US yet, I don't know why.
I had a question I want to ask our panelists who do a very varied background. For the kind of people who might be in the audience, everybody asks, hey, what should I do to get into VR? Should I learn Unity, or should I be going to learn programming? And that's not the right answer for everybody, because VR is going to require a lot of different skills. 3D graphics artists, store designers who design retail stores, architectural people who work on the designs of things. So there's a lot of different types of talents, just like there's a lot of different people it takes to make a movie. There's a lot of different people it takes to keep a website going, with everything from SEO to content generation and all of the hosting and all the other things. I'd like to hear from the panelists what they think the key things for people who want to be in retail and AR and VR when it's ripe. What should they be doing today to be ready for it when it finally comes, so that they can be the leaders of that movement and of the revolution, I think it'll be, when we do move fully into AR and VR.
Mobile payments. Figure out mobile payments. I think that's key. Like, you want a frictionless, seamless customer.
I'm talking more about skills.
Customer experience. Well, I think as designers, you're gonna need a design for a nice interface on payments, because I don't want to go into a VR space and push buttons with numbers on them. Like, how boring is that? Like if I have, I mean, we're in emoji culture now. So wouldn't I make my, WorldPay is working, there's a company called WorldPay, and they're working on they have a demo on YouTube that shows mobile payments in VR. And to me, it was like, oh, their shift was, oh, the bubbles of numbers are over here and behind you, and then you kind of gather them together. And I just thought, wouldn't I rather gather a password of emojis or something, you know? Like, so I'm curious about how the design of mobile payments is gonna go. I'm curious about how, you know, the dangers of a retailer having an online store where maybe they're selling avatars, right? Like, so you have an online store. I have a specific avatar that knows me and that has all my buying habits, and this is kind of going off, but what's a smash and grab in virtual reality? As a retailer, you know, it's like slam the front door, pull all the polo that you can, and run. What's that going to be like in VR? And what's the design for a security system going to be for that?
So from that answer, I deduced that learning about security is going to be a really, really good thing. And learning about, because that is critical for every technology, and I think security in VR, especially in commerce where money is being handled, that's a critical thing. And definitely security is an area that I think is worth pursuing. And what else were you mentioning besides the security?
Just design of
Oh, the design of how experiences goes, and that's about user experience design. And that user experiences are going to become audiographical. I started reordering things from Amazon on Alexa. I don't have to push any buttons or say anything or whatever. So it is going to be simplified. I think we get to VR to be like that. But again, what do you think the skills that people should be studying? What should they be doing now so they'll be able to get the good juicy jobs?
Well, you mentioned user experience design, that's in my hood. But there's one part that I see that we are forgetting a lot when we are talking about new tech, and in this case with the augmented reality, that we jump into technology too fast. So I see a lack of service designers, people that are able to look at the whole spectrum of retail, from brick and mortar store to where to use the device, when it's required to do that. And we need to have some behavioral researchers, because before we were talking about what is the biggest obstacle, and it's not only technology. Technology will catch up. But you see, this example was very simple. It was just a print. Pokemon Go was one of the most successful ones, and it was running on technology from 2010. So there's a model very simple. You know, is the behavioral model of BJ Fox, and you need to have a motivation, ability, and trigger to create some behavior. The ability is really low because the friction is very high. So we really have to put the effort into motivation. We need somebody that is going to design those experiences, and then somebody that will lower the friction, and that will be the UI designer and the UX designer. And somebody that creates stories, so then the trigger is something that happens as a habit, and not as push as it's now, so you're having an attendant in the shop, and he's going to invite you to wear the wearable. It's becoming automatically. So yeah, that's my take on it.
I think the biggest shift is going from 2D to 3D. Actually, VR, AR is more like a combination of city planning, this is 3D, and theater. And so I was trained in urban planning. I was going to theater a long time ago, and we were living and designing in 3D, interactive. And then I had to live in this flat world for like 30 years. So going into VR feels like going back into theater and urban planning. I think the best metaphor is, if you really want to learn, is choreography for dance and theater. And the reason is that if we actually do this now in Sweden, we have this open space, but nobody wants it boring space. That's Second Life, the first version, right? Is they want to see something that's interesting, it's beautifully laid out. So choreographers and set designers are really good at decorating, designing spaces, animating with avatars and things. So it's more like a choreographer. And then the other model would be like Farmville, where they have 3D avatars and products that you buy. You can buy a hatchet or a pig or a dog or whatever you want, right? Avatars. So it's kind of a cross between Farmville, theater, dance, choreography, with a little bit of urban planning thrown in. But I think that's the biggest shift I see.
We'll do questions later. We'll be getting to those soon. Artists, we're going to do tons of artists because VR and AR are very visual medium. So there's a lot of art and design that people will need to know specific to VR art and design and AR art and design, which are very different. So I think the designer element is going to be really big as part of it too. And also really understanding how to make things appealing, visually appealing, emotionally appealing. VR is a very emotional medium. So you need to know, how can you create a story that is an emotionally powerful story? Because the very best commercials, the very best ads, the very best movies, TV shows, and books are all stories.
I think I would comment on one the previous questions in that what skills that people need. And technically, it's simple, right? Technically, you can pick up from either Unity or Unreal, or you can pick up WebVR, right? But I think the most important thing, even before you pick this up, is that something Stephen just mentioned when he's answered the previous question, which is the use case, right? So the best use case for VR and AR is the type of use case that does not make sense or impossible to be achieved, without VR and AR, right? Only the use cases that cannot exist without the VR AR as a new media to deliver this type of use cases. Only these use cases are valuable to be delivered by VR and AR. So
Excellent point.
Yeah, I think I was listening to an old interview from Jeff Bezos, and sort of the reason why he created Amazon, it was like exactly what you said. He created it because no bookstore could hold the amount of physical books that are out, all the physical books in the world that are out there. It's just impossible physically, but the internet made that possible. So searching for those use cases, and if you're a designer, I think now this is a total sort of paradigm shift as a whole, where this whole product designer term has sort of come about and became a very popular thing. And I think the main thing behind it is finding those use cases, right? Like, how do you go about finding these like killer use cases? And that's sort of like whole product strategy efforts. And my favorite book on that is a book by Tony Olwick. It's called What Customers Want. It's all about finding sort of hidden gems, or you could say like problems that people are facing. There's a whole methodology behind it, but we use it pretty consistently. And it's all about identifying unmet needs, unmet opportunities. So an example I like to give is if you were to survey people when they came out of a taxi and ask, how important is it for you to feel comfortable during your car ride? Probably say, it's very important. And you say, how satisfied were you with the ability to feel safe, or feel comfortable in your taxi cab ride? And so, well, it's pretty low. Right, so we look for things that are very important and are not being satisfied, what we call unmet needs. So if you can find problems that have, that are big unmet needs for people, and find solutions, and then, let sort of the UX take over that you guys have been doing for years and years and years of finding solutions to those very specific problems. And if they're problems that can only be solved in the VR space, and I think, you got yourself a really big winner and a big market opportunity right there. So.
Today, Samsung also announced that they were partnering with BuzzFeed and Now This News to create somewhere between like 150 new videos for the Gear VR platform. So if you're a journalist or a writer or a novelist, or you're curious about writing and producing, you should pick up one of these Insta360 cameras that you can plug into your phone, or you should pick up a Ricoh Theta camera somewhere, I think it's around $300, or a Gear VR camera, and start telling stories in your neighborhood or in your family so that you can understand the production workflow. So what's going to be involved? I mean, I think, yeah, you're going to learn by doing in this case.
Again, going back to Sweden, we're always trying to think of new models, their business models, and we're looking at blended reality. To address your point about the stores, to try to bring traffic back, plus the small retailers, not the big shopping malls. So how do you get people into the store? Because my family business has to deal with that every day. So what can you use, how can you use AR and VR to bring more people into the store? And on the other hand, there's stuff that doesn't exist is in VR and virtual world. So how do you blend the two? And we actually came up with the idea of the Alice in Wonderland, the rabbit hole. And think about it, you can go into any store, get AR, see what's in there, and then you have the door, it's like Alice in Wonderland, and you go into the hole. What do you see? A super mall, 24 to 100 blocks. You can have circuses, whatever you want in there, right? Because it's VR, and real estate is free in VR, correct? You couldn't do it in San Francisco, it costs too much. So why would you try to replicate a store in San Francisco and the costs are out of sight, when in VR, you can create anything you want infinitely. So I think what we're looking at is this kind of Alice in Wonderland where the mom and pop Italian store down the street can't afford anything. It's got a little shop, you walk in there, but they have a super mall bigger than Amazon for something. So I think that's kind of where it's going, but we haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I'm going to toss one out there. So a new skill that doesn't exist right now, that I think is going to be essential in VR, are people who understand user experience and people who understand psychology working together to create these experiences. VR is a very, very powerful psychological tool. They've been able to treat depression without meds using VR. It's also, there was a TED Talk that called VR the empathy machine. VR has the capacity to increase your empathy. Now, brands can leverage that in amazing ways if they think about it. And also the unprecedented access that VR gives to your subconscious can be used to influence the perceptions of things, the way people start to feel about things, and the progression of how they experience things. And I really think that the people who are going to win big in VR in retailing or AR in retailing are people who understand the psychology of it. Just like people study scent marketing and what scents make people buy. And Muzak, we've all known, influences purchase decisions by different types of things. I think the psychological elements that are used in VR are going to be very, very powerful in creating empathy with the brand, maybe even, or certain products, or other users in a social setting. Because a lot of times you buy something through peer pressure, or that you see a lot of your friends. And I sincerely believe that every purchase decision is based on emotion. No matter how much logic you think you're putting into it, when the bottom line comes down, every purchase decision is based on emotion. Now you have the tool that can have great analytics for emotion, that can have great analytics for body language, all the other things, and then also be used as a tool to craft specific emotional states, emotional situations, and so forth that you can use in your story to tell very powerful stories about your brand and about your products and about your customers, because sometimes your customers are a product to another audience that you might be working with. So I really think the psychological, and psychologists need to understand about the art and the graphics, how the user experience and design comes in. So blending of those two fields, I think might be something that comes up in the future as a very important category to learn.
Just on that point, and not really related to retail, but because retailers have to become storytellers, they rely on the writers and the directors and the producers to help them bring that to life. And as a director, you're really, you hear stories about how you're an influencer more than a director, but I've found that I've become a user designer, like in a way that I never anticipated. So it's really about, for me, the beauty of VR is escape. Like, that's why I love movies, because I want to escape for a while. So as designers, what kind of world do you want your audience to escape into? There are people that love horror, and maybe they have apartments that can withstand the screaming of horror in VR, but I'm not one of those people. But the point is that, you have to look at your customer. What does your customer need? What's going to be convenient for them? Where do they want to go? And then I think that will determine sort of what kind of technology you'll use to get them there.
Yeah, okay, we want to go into some questions. Thanks for panelists. You can feel free to ask any of the panelists any questions that you'd like. I think, did you have a gift that you wanted to give?
So just before we get to the questions, I have a little gift here. It's a Moe's Books bag from Berkeley, and it also has a copy of Ready Player One. So if you haven't read Ready Player One, I highly recommend it, and one lucky winner will get it, and a cardboard headset. So the winner is Janai, Janani. Is she here? Okay, you're the winner. Give it up for Janani.
And after you read Ready Player One, you have to read Snow Crash. Okay, so questions? Okay, can we grab the other mic for the audience?
So I feel like because we're in San Francisco, we have the privilege of living in this tech bubble, and the reason that like we're even talking about AR and VR is because we live in San Francisco, we live in this tech bubble, and I kind of disagree with your statement where you say, oh, everybody knows what AR is and everybody knows what VR is, because when you step outside this tech bubble, like go to a suburb in like LA, they're not gonna.
Well, it's been in the movies for
Like,
so long. I
but-
trust you. Ask people what VR is, and you will find that the vast majority of the population knows what it is.
But I still feel like we do live in this like privileged bubble. Like when you step outside, there are still millions of people that aren't exposed to this technology. And like everybody in this room is like privileged enough to like be here, have a good job, like learn about what AR is, like be introduced in the space. So I'm kind of just wondering, like, is this technology, like, do you see it like being accessible to everybody, or is it just for people like in this tech bubble?
You know what? People said that about the internet in San Francisco because a lot of the internet stuff started here too.
So the mic was just next to me, so I will add something. Yeah, you live in tech bubble, and do you know that in Germany, people don't use credit cards because they don't trust it? Of course, some people they have, but they don't use it. They use cash. The world is different.
I just want to answer that question. Oh, I just wanted to answer that specifically.
Do you have a mic there?
No, that's our mic. Yeah, I think mobile payments are on their way up. If I don't use them personally, I'm uncomfortable with them, and so my worldview would be like they're a miss, because when I go to pay for something, there's so many options, it's confusing and annoying, and I don't like that. But by the end of this year, it's gonna be $50 billion or $60 billion of transactions in mobile payments, and then by 2020, it's somewhere around $500 billion. So it's coming. I agree with you. I totally think that we're in this tech bubble and nobody else, even if they know about it, they don't care about it. I mean, it's too expensive. It's not convenient. Most adopters of VR are young and motivated by the technology. They're not motivated by the youth. And I think, Sheridan, did you write something about, like, there was a summary on augmented world reality that talked about this same thing, that was, right now in this phase of we have the hammers looking for nails. So, because we're privileged to be here, I think that's a great opportunity that everyone needs to take advantage of. And the best things happen to me, in my opinion, like to make something go viral, is word of mouth, right? So it's definitely like this slow progression of one person showing another. It's a hard technology that you have to try to understand it, and most people don't have that kind of access.
The other thing is it a bubble? Or is it the leading edge of Western civilization, where so much scientific research and new innovation comes from the Bay Area all the time? Genetics and genetic research was around here. Should we never have used anything from Genentech? The internet got started around here. Should we never have used anything? I think that's a specious argument. I think the fact that we're here gives us a fantastic opportunity to be in on the ground floor.
I think you're forgetting the porn industry.
Oh, God.
You are.
I'll just comment on your
That's
question.
not retail.
I think you are absolutely right that outside of San Francisco Bay Area, a lot of people really could care less about VR AR. And I think, but I think that it's going to be more successful than Google Glass, as an example. I think it's going to have a bigger impact than the Apple Watch, and we're still figuring out, as you said, what's the impossible thing that you could do on the Apple Watch that you can't do on your phone. That's a good test for a technology to see if it's going to be successful. I'll tell you a little anecdote. I took home the Google Daydream headset, and I'm a techie. I've been doing stuff for 25 years on the web, native mobile, whatever. And I thought, well, let's try it on my boyfriend and see what he thinks. something. So I put him in Google Street View in front of our favorite bakery in Wailuku on Maui. And he looked around. I said, do you know where you are? He said, F yeah. And I said, what's it like? And it's like, oh wow. And even with this screen door view of VR and this Generation 1 device, he was emotionally affected. He started to weep a little bit. And then I was like, oh crap, I gotta skill up on this because this is about to happen in a big way. If someone who's a non-techie can be affected emotionally by a digital experience on a Generation 1 device, that means that I need to get in there and understand it, even with all its numeric button pushing crudeness right now.
It's like VR is the most powerful medium ever, by far. And we're just at the very beginning of it. And I disagree. I spent 5 years talking to people, even in the Bay Area, why the internet was going to be important and why they would ever need the internet. And when I was a young laddie and I had an Apple II, I had spent 10 years explaining to people why they would ever want to have a computer. And you know what? That was all happening here in the Bay Area. Was I embarrassed or ashamed? Did I feel like I was a snooty, privileged one? No, it was a starving college kid. I felt excited that I got to be at the center of where this stuff is being created. I get to be at the where all the tech companies is, because I'm a geeky person. And this was like, not just as an experience for me to bathe and all this stuff, but to make something meaningful out of my life, to do something that's affected millions of people in a very positive and beneficial way. And I think that's what VR has as an opportunity right now, is to get in and be one of the thinkers and the creatives and the drivers of the most powerful new medium ever. It'll replace television. It's going to, the capabilities of it, because of that emotional connection and psychological connection, it is the most powerful medium by far.
Yeah, in regards to what you're saying, if you've seen Samsung Gear commercial, that's what it is. Find Fred Davis in Wikipedia to know him.
Yeah, just talking from the user experience perspective.
Say who you are first, please.
I'm a user experience designer, so it's from the UX perspective. So I just want to ask, like, my biggest concern about like VR retail is like the haptic feedback. Like for example, if you want to buy a clothing, if I go to a shop, I can touch the fabric, right? If you want to buy a perfume, like if I go to a shop, I can like smile it. But in the VR, it's just like visual feedback. Like how do you guys think like in the future can be like address this issue? So like otherwise, I think like VR is like valuable, like in the way like more. I like the word like escape in VR. So I think VR is like more valuable in film industry, like rather than like retail.
Well, for things that are touchable, that are high touch, high ticket items, there's returns, and that's what every online vendor does. Is if you can feel it tomorrow or in 2 days, and if you don't like it, you can send it back and get one that feels better. Because right now, haptics is going to be solved, but 5 years or 10 years from now, they'll just tap into your the stem of your brain with that non-invasively, and you will feel and see and hear and smell anything imaginable, because it'll be programmable into your brain directly as an extension of the VR, because we're learning that much about the brain. Devices are becoming that sensitive so that they don't have to be implanted in your brain or anything crazy, and people are already controlling objects in VR using just their mind. So I think that in the future, this will take care of itself, but for the time being, everybody wants a haptic solution. I know companies that are working on smell. It's very challenging. And there are things that give you haptic feedback in your hands or in your body and in other places. So haptics is very, very recognized as an important thing. But for things you actually have to touch, you're going to have to have cloths, fabric, swabs, like the paint store, swaths, or you're going to have to see it. Look at it on yourself in a mirror, ask your friends, what do you think, what do you think? And then when it shows up, you go, oh, this feels itchy, I'm sending it back. But at least you've had that experience of being able to look at it, see it on yourself, and ask your friends what they think, how you look in it, and you can't do that today.
Yeah, so but I still like think like buying things is very like social thing, like, so I think it's really like, it will be like pointless to like build exactly like for Macy's store if you may make the Macy's store build exactly the same building like in VR world. Like I would be like more interested to see like they can build like some fantasy building like a crystal.
Well, of course you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Did people put the floor plans for their stores on e-commerce and have you go to that department and then see a picture of the walls and the clothes of the department? No, of course not. They found out new metaphors and new ways to explore and express these things. And right now, that's the creative challenge. What are the new metaphors? What are these new ways and things that would come in to be able to capture people and get them engaging with whatever it is, other people, other things, content, media, stuff for sale. And there's a long way to go. We're at the very, very, very beginning of the VR and AR industries. All today's hardware is garbage, basically, but work on that content, work on those skills.
I think what's going to be really interesting also is the new things to buy. You know, you're going to need hair for your avatar. You're going to want to spend time just changing the color of the, you know, of your outfit. Or, you know, I think one of the most successful apps out there is the Kimoji or Kim Kardashian game, right? So imagine being that in virtual space where you get loyalty credits the longer you spend in the store. Let's say you watch an advertisement or go through an advertising experience in a virtual mall, and that gives you credits to update your avatar in some way. So I think it'll be really interesting to have virtual products to buy. I think that's something that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, sorry. Just to add to that real quick. It's like I said earlier, you know, some things are, I think when you look at the UX design, you have to understand the product that you're selling, right? I mean, ultimately, like I said, you don't need to feel toilet paper every time you buy. I don't need to feel the cereal, smell the cereal. Like, I know what Cheerios taste like. I know exactly what they are. So for those commodity type products, it's always going to be, you know, e-commerce, or if you want to go to the grocery store real quick, then that's another way. But you really have to understand, like, sort of why the motivations that people buy it. And I think, you know, like, I remember reading Tony Hsieh's book, Delivering Happiness, a great book. If you guys haven't read it yet, CEO of Zappos. You know, and they said that the reason that they founded Zappos was because no one thought people would buy shoes online. Like, oh, I need to touch shoes, I need to try them on. And sure enough, like, Zappos took off, right, with the right customer experience, the right design, creating the right experience where they'll send you 5 shoes and you can try them on if you want, and you can send 4 back. People do it all the time. They'll pay for return shipping. So it's all about handling the customer experience in the right way, and I think that's where, you know, like Ceciliana was saying, becoming a sort of a real product designer and then a real user experience designer where you understand the customer's pain points from beginning to end, that's going to be a huge part of sort of the world of VR. So.
I don't know where we're getting all the static, but yeah, understanding and enhancing the customer voyage, the customer experience. There's so much work to be done, and it's a different interface. It's going to require new UX skills and new UX thinking. And so, again, that's, I think, something if people want to get into it, there's a lot of multidisciplinary things that VR will demand. And I think for people who either team up with people and share knowledge or who learn these multidisciplinary fields are going to be very, very well suited to be at the forefront of VR and AR development.
Hi. So I took some notes, and in general, a bit disappointed with the demo and some of the so I'm not completely disagreeing on what you said.
Try the antenna.
Nah. Okay. So, well, you hear disappointment. That's important. So I think there's a few things here on this panel, which is, at least it's from down there. I've seen lots of student empty notebooks, people sketching and other things. I think that you missed a few bits on what AR and VR can help in the future. But I think I have a few bits here. First of all is the bubble. I'm not talking about the bubble of San Francisco. I'm talking about the bubble of the money bubble that VR and AR companies are generating. And I quote you, sorry, I forgot your name, when you said, Cecilia, sorry, when you said that the costs have to come down. I don't think so. I think companies are inflating those costs and are generating this bubble. I'm talking from the experience of a studio that creates AR and VR experiences. I think I agree with all of you. It's a very powerful tool. There's an opportunity. There is lots of metaphors to find. It's a great path to explore together. But some people, they're not helping on generating this bubble that I continue to see happening. I heard of QR codes, which happened like 5 years ago. I haven't heard of machine learning. I haven't heard of augmented reality and artificial intelligence mixed with mixed reality. I heard about input problems, like payment problems. I think we're finding other solutions to that without having to have those bubble numbers, like you said. I don't think we need more artists. There are plenty of artists that use 3D environments and 3D characters and animation. You just need to find a way to port it, which you already touched on it. We just need to find that bridge. And so we don't need more writers. We have writers producing TV shows, films. I think we have everything, and the space is being hijacked by companies trying to make money out of it, when you really can do an amazing AR, VR experience in less than a week if you have like some people willing to collaborate. And that starts with the students being engaged, and that starts with being a bit less San Francisco, as you were saying, being a bit less like, I'm not going to work if I don't have this massive salary on my back, And I think these things are killing creativity. I'm not pointing at anyone. I think lots of companies are killing this space, and I think there is a great opportunity to save it. So that's my.
So where do we find you on Facebook for the Save Space?
I'll give you my card after this. It's okay. But
I
will be happy to hear you.
Well, I totally agree about the AI stuff, and sometimes I tell my friends if I was going to start a company, it would be about AI and VR. And that's what I meant by the intelligent shopping agent and shopping assistant that would come in. And when I even joked about ordering from Alexa, that's an intelligent agent that you can do a transaction without pressing any buttons. And conversational computing is going to be very important in VR and AR, whether that's through speaking or chatting or whatever, but having it be more natural and conversational. Totally agree with that. The AI is going to be a very important key technology.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, anyone has any questions? I don't want to be negative at all. I just like.
Oh no, negativity's fun. Can't go all positive. There's dark sides to VR, dark and dangerous sides to VR.
I'm not sure how much time we have left, so this is kind of a super question, and you guys, as panelists, can choose whichever one you want to answer. So I think the biggest thing that I'm curious about is other markets are further along in terms of the consumer tech adoption perspective. Like China is one of those markets everyone says is much farther along in AR and VR, but from the and other verticals like healthcare and construction. But specifically for the retail vertical, do you think retailer technology adoption is on par in the US or still farther along than other markets like China? And then the second part to that question is, what are the inflection points that the market actually needs here in the US? And specifically things like VR arcades and galleries that were enormously successful in China. Like, are those the same sort of best practices we should be bringing here in order to solve a consumer adoption problem?
Yeah,
As far as the inflection points, I think it's really, we're in this middle phase that we have to kind of ride out, and I think that the companies that we start now are, because they're human design technologies, they have inherent failures that are going to be really hard. So best design isn't necessarily going to be what wins out. And to insulate from that happening, you want to have a good team. So you want to have a good, broad, diverse team that can pivot or has a broad experience in the marketplace and that can you know, be agile and shift if they need to when they see the winds sort of changing. But yeah, I think, you know, sort of lost my train of thought there. But the point is that right now the teams are really critical, and you have to invest in the people. And the people, when you're developing a retail experience, should be your employees should almost like be your customers, right? Because they're going to be your evangelists. So we can talk about technology till we're blue in the face, and that, you know, we don't need this and that, but actually we do need artists, we do need writers, we do need people to run these experiences for people. And the person that's going to come up with a killer app is probably 10 years old right now, you know? So have kids. You know?
I was curious what Ryan might think.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question, and in addition to just answering this question, I'd like to take this opportunity also to address one of the original questions that they just asked. So I'd like to start by sharing one of my experience I had in China. So back in December last year, I was chasing down some of the VR arcade business model in China, and I went not only to the tier 1 cities, but also tier 2, tier 3 cities, and I ended up finding myself in a rural area, right? So it's not even a city, it's some kind of village, right? And what I discovered in that village is that there is a company called 9D, 9D, and what they are trying to implement is that they are installing the whole VR arcade solution in the trucks, and they hire a bunch of truck drivers, and they drive the truck to the village. And when they come to the village, basically there are like 1,000 villagers in the villages. They all lined up paying 100 RMB, 150 RMB, which translate into, you know, somewhere between 15 to 25 USD to try their once in a lifetime VR experience. And if you look at, and they've actually waited like 2 hours, 3 hours just to, you know, pay for that experience, right? I think, you know, that's something amazing to see, and that's something that, you know, this type of model cannot be replicated outside China, right? And I also want to so this is the first half of the story. And the second half of the story is that while I was in that village, I also take the chance to did a little bit tourist thing. So the village was in a place called Guilin, and so there's a river called Lijiang, which is a, you know, very beautiful river, and there are beautiful mountains around it. And the local villagers, they have the service to do kind of you know, rafting type of service. So they put together a raft, you know, the bamboo made raft, and they take you floating on top of Lijiang and all the way to the bottom, right? So I actually, when I was paying the villagers, basically the guide, to take me to the trip, right? I was running short on cash at that time. So I was asking him, I'm running short on cash. Do you have online banks? Do you accept credit card? They were like, what is online bank? What is credit card? But after that, I tried, hey, can I pay you with WeChat? So WeChat Pay. And surprisingly, they accept WeChat Pay. So when we are thinking about all these adoption problems, I think it's very important to think about, you know, there are many times that we thought the adoption is gonna happen in some kind of sequence, right? You know, from the cash to cash payment to the online payment, from online payment to from cash to credit card, from credit card to online payment, and from online payment to mobile payment, right? But there are also cases where the adoption can have jumps, and in this example, these villagers, their use cases and their habits are actually jumping directly from cash payment to mobile payment, right? And if you go to China today, most people walking on the street, they no longer carry their wallet with them. Because, you know, WeChat Pay and Alipay, you can not only buy stuff from shopping malls, you can buy street food, you can pay your friends. Basically, that covers all the use cases, and people just stop carrying wallets, right? And for this type of adoption, you can't really see similar things happening in the US. Although, as you mentioned, we live in San Francisco, so we are at this privileged place. But in terms of adoption, it's a different story. And I think it's always important to keep an open mindset and realize that the paradigm of the world is having shifting a lot, and you really need to go out there and understand what's happening in some different markets to understand how adoption is actually happening.
Okay, one rule, do not go touring Design Week and show up at my door drunk.
Okay, last week, or 2 weeks ago, AWE 2017 CSA, Tom Furness is one of the originators of VR, is launching his Airstream VR world, and he's going to be traveling around the US to do exactly what the Chinese have done. And I actually was thinking about it. I said, for all these people who want to get out of the city and travel throughout the country in your little tricked out truck or VR van, or laid off truck drivers who want to retrofit, I can see that it could be a wide open business, because there's, as you say, nobody knows it, and you could probably make money traveling around the US, showing people the coolest stuff from San Francisco.
No doubt virtual travel will be one of the big things in VR someday, because it allows you to travel anywhere in the world with just a headset. Hey, I think we get to the end of the time here, so I wanted to thank our panelists for showing up. Also, thank everyone who showed up. If you want to come up and talk to us, at least I'll be hanging around afterwards. And I really think if you're interested in this topic, it's going to be a good one, because it's only going to grow from here. It's only going to get better. We're only going to solve problems. So that's the good news, and I'd love it if some of you are part of that.
Our next VR AR event is during San Francisco Fashion Week in September.